Hi folks, it's Sarah here and it's the end of week 14. And guess what? I've had a good week. I've had a really good week and I've actually dropped down to just a squeak over 59 kilos. And I was so excited, I actually took a photograph of the scales here to prove it. And that's really unexpected given the fact that last week, again, I didn't drop anything. So once again, I'm kind of going, what the hell is going on with my body this week? Because again, I had a kind of interrupted week. Last week, I said that I was going to try and get four lunchtime sessions in, four lunchtime cardio sessions in, but I only managed to get two in. And then on Tuesday, I actually came off my bike, cycling home in the wet. I came off my bike, had an accident. So my bike was out of action for 3 days. So for 3 days this week, I've been getting the tram, which means I haven't been doing my usual sort of 15 or so kilometres cycling. So this week, I've actually done less exercise than usual and I've dropped. So I thought, well, this is all really bizarre. One thing I did do extra this week, and I didn't change my diet. I said that I wasn't going to change my diet, and I didn't change my diet. But one thing I did do this week is I had 3 infrared saunas. That's kind of led me to the question. It's like, am I actually potentially overtraining here? I mean, what actually is overtraining? So overtraining is where your sort of performance decreases and you get a range of symptoms and you just sort of lose your will to live, lose the enthusiasm for training, and your body just isn't recovering. And sort of typical symptoms of overtraining include persistent muscle soreness. If you get DOMS after your training sort of for 24 or 48 hours, that's actually not too bad. That's okay. But if it goes on much beyond 48 hours, then you could be overtraining. Elevated resting heart rate is another symptom of overtraining. And you can test your heart rate very, very simply by just checking your pulse, counting your heartbeats for 15 seconds and timing it by 4. Another indication is susceptibility to infections, getting more sick, more niggly little sort of colds and coughs and flus and things, increased incidence of injuries, of course, cranky. Do you get cranky with people? Are little things annoying you? Like you might lose your keys and go, "What the hell are my keys?" It's kind of a little bit out of character. So are you getting more irritable and snappy with people? Depression is a classic symptom of overtraining. And also your loss of motivation for training. If you're just going, oh God, I can't face going to the gym, you could be overtraining. And that's sort of, not only do you get the physical symptoms of fatigue, you're also getting the mental and emotional fatigue as well. And insomnia, of course, is another classic symptom of overtraining. So even though you're sort of kind of wiping yourself out, your hormones kind of might be out of balance and you're producing too much cortisol generally, and that'll wake you up. So in that case, you really must prioritize your sleep between 10 and 2 a.m. because that's when you physically recover. So I thought about, am I potentially overtraining? And the fact that I've done less cycling and I've had these really nice relaxing sauna. I mean, it's super relaxing. I've kind of done them, but they were infrared saunas were really trendy sort of a while ago, and of course they're supposed to burn 600 calories in a session. So I was like, look, whatever. If I'm burning any extra calories at all right now, that has to be a good thing. So that's why I've been doing them. But I have to say, it's been incredibly relaxing. So I've been sort of finishing my work and going to these infrared saunas and just having like a lovely little snooze and just a complete chill out and just really, really dialing back. And in addition to that, I didn't do my 4 sessions, lunchtime sessions. I only managed 2. So overall this week, I've probably decreased the amount of training that I've done, which has probably led to, maybe a reduction of inflammation. And I have actually added in I think it was from Wednesday, I also started taking Kava. Now, Kava is again, it's just one of these sort of adaptogenic herbs, and it's known for sort of calming sort of your brain and just being super, super, super relaxing. I think it's Fiji where it comes from, but they're actually sort of, instead of having a coffee bars and stuff like that, they have kava bars, and they actually have this sort of, it's actually like a mildly sort of alcoholic drink that used to be used in ceremonies and stuff like that. But it is just a very relaxing drink. So I've actually been having kava tea before I go to bed this week, just to make sure that I'm as relaxed as possible and I'm really, really prioritizing my sleep. So I think sort of from last week when I said that, stepping out of competition just when I had the weekend with my niece and nephew, stepping away from competition was really, really good for my headspace. And I think this week, again, having done those infrared saunas as well, it was probably been really good for my headspace. And I actually haven't trained today. Today I just woke up and I was like, yep, that's it. I'm going to go around the botanical gardens. I'm going to do some hill sprints. I'm going to do a nice walk. And then I just got up and went, you know what? I'm just not. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to, I just went to shopping, got out early, did the shopping, had a lovely breakfast, and then I've just sort of watched some crap TV, and I'm much more sort of cognizant of like pulling back and trying to not get so lost in comp prep that I lose sight of everything else. And I think that's something that I really need to be aware of. But having sort of said all of that, like I said, I don't think I am overtraining, but it appears that this focus on sort of relaxation potentially might be helping, because I didn't change my diet this week. So the only thing that's changed this week is my training load, and I seem to have dropped weight. Now, the problem is, because I changed a number of things, I didn't do the cycling and I did do the infrared sauna. I'm not quite sure which of these things have worked. Now, when you want to find out if something's working, when you've changed a number of variables, it's very difficult to tell what's actually working and what isn't working. So what I'm going to do this week, I'm not going to change my diet, keep that absolutely same, because diet seems to be working. Potentially I've hit the right level of calories. I'm sort of, the 1200 to 1250 still. Is it 3 days? 4 days. The 1550 for 2 days, and then the refeed of about 2000. That pattern seems to be working, and I haven't changed that for 3 weeks now. So the only thing that's been changing over the last couple of weeks has been my workload, in terms of work, my job work stress. And this week, my job has been significantly less stressful, significantly less busy. So it's kind of been pretty relaxing. I've sort of caught up with people for coffee and gone out for lunches and things like that. So it's been much more relaxing at work. And I think all of that has kind of played into just, letting my body do what it needs to do. And this is the thing. Sometimes when you get so focused on something, you actually create additional stress. And being so type A and being such a perfectionist, sometimes I'm actually my own worst enemy. And every now and then I need to remind myself to step away and step back to give things space to happen. And I think that's actually what has happened this week. So next week, I really want to focus on trying to figure out whether it was the lack of workload that helped the weight loss or it was the infrared sauna. So because I've got two key variables to play with, which is the cycling and the infrared sauna, what I need to know is which one of those potentially has worked. So this week, I will keep my diet exactly the same, but I should have a full week this week on the bike. So I'm going to do a full week on the bike this week, but not with the infrared sauna, and see if I drop. If I don't drop, then potentially I need to pull back on my workload and do the infrared sauna. So that will be the next week's experiment. So I know I keep sort of saying to you, sort of trust your process and stuff like that. But whilst I sort of do trust the process, when things happen, you need to kind of follow it up and figure it out. You've always got to be learning. So on your prep, always be learning, because each prep is different. Everything, there is an element of learning in every single prep. So like I say, something's happened this week, and I don't know if it was the pulling back on the weight training or it was the saunas. So that's what I need to find out, because if it's the saunas that actually are burning the calories, well, that's it. Saunas are coming back in. If it's the lack of cycling, then potentially I need to pull the cycling out, or maybe just take out the lunchtime training. So I've got to figure out whether it's workload that's worked or the extra saunas that's worked. So that's really the theme for this week. I've got my photographs here as well. And also, one thing I forgot to say is, another thing to talk about is pay attention to what other people say. At some point in your prep, you'll get to a point where people suddenly start paying attention to you. you'll look different from what they may have seen you looking before. And you might suddenly start getting comments from strangers. Now, when you get comments from strangers, pay attention to what those comments are, because that could be an indication that something is really starting to work. And I'll tell you what sparked that. It was this week at the gym. Some guy came into. I was doing my posing practice. I mean, it was pretty obvious. I was in the middle of a front double bicep, and I was actually just kind of admiring my biceps because I suddenly started noticing a bit of definition that I hadn't seen before, and I went, "Huh, something's changed." So I was studying my biceps, and this guy came into the posing room, and he was like, "Are you competing?" And I kind of laughed, as like, what gave that away? I'm in the middle of my front double bicep sort of thing, But this guy's seen me every day probably, and I've certainly seen this guy every day. And all of a sudden, he felt compelled to comment. And when people feel compelled to comment, you know that something's starting to happen. So look, I'm always really encouraged when I start getting comments from strangers, because it just means that you're starting to stand out as somebody who's a little bit different, or you're doing something a bit different, or something's showing that's a bit different. So that was really encouraging. So I've actually had a really good week, and I'm sort of kind of feeling in a really good space. Now with Easter coming up, next weekend is Easter. So what I'm doing is, I know I've only got, by the end of next week, it'll only be 6 weeks to go. Seven. It'll only be 7 weeks to go to Greece. But I'm going to take a full 4 days diet and training break. Now, that might sound really counterintuitive, but when you're getting to the pointy end of your prep, if you've been hammering it hard, sometimes, and again, this feeds into the whole overtraining things. If you've been hammering yourself hard, you've got to take breaks. Now, I have a scheduled diet training break every 12 weeks. So that would have been about the second or third week, really, of my prep. I'm taking the advantage of Easter and having a full diet and training break. And I'm going away to Dalesford. I'm just going to sort of relax in a nice environment. I might do a bit of walking. I'll take my bike and I'll just pedal around the place. There's some nice parks, and do a bit of walking. So I'm just going to do something that's not my usual routine, that's nice and relaxing. And that should allow me to recover again. It's all about recovery. I'll up my calories as well. I'll keep it completely clean, but I'll just up my calories just to give my body that sort of boost that it needs to really hammer the final 6 weeks. All right, let's go to the photos. So front pose is starting to look really good. I'm starting to get some nice shape through my glutes and my quads, which is really good. Side pose really hasn't changed too much, I don't think. When I was in the bathroom, I could actually see some obliques, but I can't here. My back pose, I'm definitely starting to get some definition through my back. And I did actually take some photographs of my legs in the bathroom, which I've got here, because I am starting to see some definition coming through my legs. Now, this is not the amount of definition that I like to see at 8 weeks out, but at least it's starting to come, which means that the fat is beginning to come off my legs, and that's a really good sign. So I've still got 7 weeks, and a lot changes. Now, here's the thing. It's always surprising how much changes in the last few weeks. The fact that I've got some definition there, I'm really, really, really pleased at, because I think it can only get better from now. And as long as I can really nail down what it is that's caused this fat loss this week, then I'm going to be in a really good. I think I'm going to be in a much better space, certainly much better headspace for the last 7 weeks. So look, that's it for this week. Overtraining, be very, very aware of that. And if you are sort of experimenting with variables, or you've changed something, or you've changed more than one thing and had a result, then you actually need to go back and investigate each one of those things that you changed individually to find out which one worked. Okay, so that's it from me. Take care, have a good week, and I'll talk to you next week.